I'm Gary Nickerson.
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
And this is Outside My Window. It was 1920, over 100 years ago, that women gained the universal right to vote in Nova Scotia. Now, prior to that date, women could vote if they met certain conditions. At the same time, women were also allowed to stand for election, but it would be years before anyone would be elected. Someone has to be first, and here in Nova Scotia, that lady was Gladys Porter. She was first elected to Kentville Town Council in 1943, and then elected mayor in 1946, and served until 1960. This was when she ran successfully as a progressive conservative to represent the provincial electoral district of Kings North, and was the first woman to be elected as MLA. In federal politics, Colleen Campbell, representing Southwest Nova, was the first woman from Nova Scotia elected to the House of Commons in 1974. Politics has habitually been considered a men's club, and while on the surface it seems that the political landscape opened up for women, but has it really? Joining us are three dedicated municipal politicians: Nicole Albright, Deputy Warden of the Municipality of Argyll; Patti Durkee, Councilor for the Municipality of Yarmouth; and Pam Mood, Mayor of the Town of Yarmouth. Ladies, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Nicole, let me start with you, if I may. So who is your inspiration to enter public life?
Well, as some people know, my dad was a municipal councillor for almost 20 years. However, my thought of being on council developed way before that. When I was in junior high, I remember taking a civics course and looking at our list. We had to memorize our list of councillors for our region, and there was not one woman on that list. And I was in grade 7 or 8, and I remember thinking, one day my name will be on that list. It was pretty much unheard of to have women as councillors in our area, so I thought, I can do this. Someday I'll do it. And then my dad, when I was in the 11th grade, he became a councillor, and I saw the work that he did. And I started volunteering, different organizations, different community groups, and realized how much I enjoyed helping people. So I still find it weird when people say I'm a politician. I feel more like a community helper. And so having seen all the work that my dad did for the people in my community, I knew it was something I wanted to continue to do.
Pam, was there a person or persons that really inspired you to enter politics and serve?
Well, I think it goes back to when I was a child and I followed my grandfather around. So he served, I just looked it up, he served 5 terms. I thought it was only a couple. He served 5 terms and I went everywhere with him. You know, when you had to wear the crinoline skirts and the white gloves and all those things. And I just remember him being in the store every day because he worked in the store as well. And you know, folks would come in and they would just be as ornery as could be, and he'd flip 2 pop crates on their sides, pat them and say, "Come sit in my office and we'll have a chat." And they'd leave shaking hands and patting each other on the back and thank you and smiles. And I couldn't articulate that as a young girl, but I just knew I wanted to make a difference in somebody's life. And I told him when I was 11, I think most people have heard this story, but I called him Jidi because that's Arabic for Grampy. And I said, "Jidi, one day when you're not the mayor, I'm going to be the mayor." And I had a pain in my stomach because, of course, he's going to say, "Don't be ridiculous, you're a girl." And he didn't. He just looked at me and he said, "I don't doubt that you will, young lady, but do it with integrity." And that was it. And then many years later, and a political science degree that I didn't know what to do with, I couldn't watch the town doing what it was doing any longer, and so you step up to serve.
Patti, your dad, Hubert Lynch, was a business person as well, also very involved in the community and tourism. Was he a great inspiration, and were there others?
He was a huge inspiration, Gary. It's funny that Pam said that she used to go with the Jidi because when I was young, I used to go to my dad's store, Lynch's Menswear, and Dad's favorite thing was to talk about politics with people in the community. And so he would invite anybody and everybody into his office, ignore some of the customers, and just sit there and talk. Everybody felt welcome. He made everyone feel really welcome. And so I used to love sitting and listening to what they were talking about. And some people will know that my dad was chairman of the Tourist Association for 21 years. So, I used to hear about the Blue Nose, and the Blue Nose, and then the Scotia Prince. And so I used to love listening to that. And interestingly enough, one of my favorite times was when the mayor came in. And who was the mayor when my dad was the deputy mayor? But Mayor Fred Eamon. So my family already had a strong relationship, and I used to love when Fred came in and sat with Dad, and I'd just sit in the little chair in the background and listen to what they were talking about. And then when I got older, I was a teacher, so I was in the helping profession all along. And I taught for 26 years in Toronto, and I had zero interest in politics there. But every time I came home, I was always finding out what was going on, was totally interested. And I thought to myself, okay, when I retire from teaching and I move back to Yarmouth, because I knew I would like to carry on in my dad's footsteps. And so I did. And here I am. So I came home and I volunteered for a couple of committees, and then I got a kick in the pants by someone we love sitting here.
Well, that's a 50-50 choice, isn't it?
And I ran, and I'm here my second term.
Do you think that it's a generational thing for the three of you, with the family being involved in politics? And I mean, I could not imagine a young person of today kind of following their grandfather along and listening to him talk politics for anything longer than 30 seconds. But with that in mind, how do you evolve that passion for community service and community politics into something that might attract younger folks of today? I know we were going to kind of talk about this a little later on, but it seemed like the right time to bring it up.
I'll start. Okay. My daughter hears about Yarmouth politics all the time. She lived here in the summers and was involved in, got a job here at the Lighthouse and learned a lot about Yarmouth at that time, because she didn't grow up here, but we were coming home every summer. And so the discussions that we have are a lot about what's going on in the community. And I'm hoping someday that she will take interest in municipal politics.
Yeah, what a great question. I think for me, I mean, it was watching my grandfather, and it instilled something in me that sooner or later it has to come out. It has to come out. I mean, I bring my granddaughter, and I'll bring two of them when they're both home. I bring them to places, and my kids go to events with me all the time. Now they will say, "Well, I'm not going to do what you're doing," but because they see what I go through. But it's in there, and they will serve when they can. I'm gonna throw this in there very quickly, that I haven't shared this with but a couple people, but I was just given the honor of being awarded the Nova Scotia Lebanese Chamber of Commerce Professional of the Year. And thank you. And you sit back and you say, how did that happen? I was in complete shock, because what am I doing, and how did that happen? And I think you go back a little bit to, no matter how you slice it, I am from a family of immigrants. And you know what you came from. You know how tremendously blessed you are to live in this community, this province, this country. And these two ladies beside me, each would say the same thing from a different perspective. And I think the Lebanese people, Zach and, his family, like everybody, we just want to give back. So the service piece is just in us, and you can't help it. Some days I think, like, what? Why am I the way I am? You know, but yeah. So it's in me to serve, I guess, and to share that with the kids.
And I think that there is more of a challenge now than there was maybe when we were younger, because I know myself too. My dad's day job, he was a TV repairman. And he made house calls in the evenings, and I followed him everywhere. He didn't have any sons. We were 4 girls. So I always felt like I had to, I was very tomboyish, and I wanted to prove that a girl could do what a boy could do. And so watching him coach and be involved in church and be involved in all his different committees, he never ever said to me, "You should." But he led by example. And I feel like that's what I'm trying to do as well, is I'm trying to show my own children that, you know, the benefit of serving other people. And I drag mine and have dragged mine along to events as well. It's a little harder now that they're adults, but when they were kids, they came to events and they volunteered their time picking up garbage in ditches and doing those types of things, because I think it's really important if we're trying to send the message of serving our communities, we have to show people that we're doing that. Social media is another outlet now, like it or not, that I think we can show what we are, we can promote our area, and we can promote what's going on, and we can promote how people can get involved. And I think that that's an important avenue that we can tap into. I know even our municipality, we've done some really funny little videos on, I had interviewed some students and we had posted that. And I know my job too is I'm a teacher. I've gone in and I've talked to different classes about politics. And I think that especially as women and as girls have to see us being involved. They have to be able to recognize themselves in these typical, more male-dominated, typical environments. So I think it's important for us to make sure that we lead by example and show them what we hope they will kind of take on.
And I have to add to that, because my feeling is that all of our kids are really proud of what we do, and they know how difficult this profession is, but you know, they see what we're doing and how we help the community, and that makes them feel good too.
You can't forget your roots.
You cannot.
Can you? I mean, where you came from. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm going to throw this question in for each of you. Did you find when you started, each of you started in public service, that you had to prove yourself because you're a woman?
I'll go first. I know that when I started, I felt intimidated. I won't lie. And I've shared this with my council members. I think it's not necessarily what anybody else did, but it was my own perception of my role in all of this. And I was very quiet in my first term and was often told how quiet I was. But it was because I often felt intimidated. But once I got a little more confidence and found my place, and I realized that I had as much to offer as anybody else sitting at that table, then my voice became louder. And my council has been amazing. They are extremely respectful. They value everybody's opinion. I can speak my mind, and I know that they will listen and not make me feel less than. So that has been definitely helpful as well for me to be able to feel that I am included. So now, the me now compared to when I first started, it's a totally different feeling.
We just love her.
You betcha.
We loved her before, but we love her now.
And I'm going to comment on that, and my experience was very different. Yes, I was, except I was intimidated. I was excluded. I was the only female among 7. And I felt very uncomfortable. There were situations that were not positive, and at some points I became afraid to say what I wanted to say because I felt that my opinion was not valid or respected, and it was very difficult. I shut down at times. I wasn't respected for my experience, and I would go home sometimes and think, why am I doing this? And I know why. I joined council to help people. That's me, and I wanted to bring my past experiences to the table, and I didn't feel it was valued.
Mixed experience for me. First of all, my first interview when I got elected, CBC called and they said, "We'd like to interview you as one of 3 women mayors that got elected." And I said, "Why don't you just call when you want to have a chat with a mayor?" And I hung up. I wasn't trying to be rude. It was my first interview. I hadn't ever watched a council meeting, no joking. I didn't know what I was doing, and I'll be blunt, I knew I could lead. And leadership, in my seat, leadership is not about knowing it all, it's about surrounding yourself with people that do. And, the 3 of us chat often, as we do with our other council members. So that was the first one. But my first, I think everybody remembers my first term, and I've never let anybody intimidate me. I mean, I know who I am and I know what I can do. I just had to learn. And I will say, and I've said this publicly 1,000 times, I wouldn't be half the mayor I am without my CAO. I sat in his office every day for a minimum of 3 hours. I'm sure he was sick of me for 4 years. And I asked everything, including, why did you paint the walls this color? It's just ugly. So I just wanted to know everything, and I'm a sponge. When I sat at the table, it was a different game, and it was, a couple of council members that, I don't know if it was the woman thing or what it was, but it was ugly. And I said, I'm not dealing with that. Like, come to the table as adults or go away. And then the next 2 councils, it's been nothing less than perfect. It's been respectful. Today we just throw everything on the table, and I make a strong, intentional effort of saying, if only one of us disagrees, we still need to put it on the table, because none of us can change our minds unless all the information's out there. And I've seen us with 6 for and 1 against change to 6 against and 1 for because somebody had the guts to put it on the table. But that is only in a safe environment where there's respect with everybody. And that's not the case at every council table.
That's an interesting point. Again, an open question for each of you. Given your experience, do you think that some of your male counterparts, present or past, perhaps, and not just politicians, but senior staff that you work with, either locally or provincially or federally, are intimidated because you are a woman?
Yes.
Yeah.
To be blunt,
Yeah.
yes. We have different perspectives on things. We are good decision makers. We want things to happen more quickly than in most levels of politics where everything is really slow. And I think, yes, that's intimidating sometimes to people. We're educators. We're leaders. If we don't know something, we ask questions. We don't let it stop at the door when we walk into council. If something comes up and we're not sure, we'll go and find out ourselves. We don't always just take a person's word for it. And then when you come back and you say, oh, well, there should be this, and this, that is intimidating to people.
I think, to Patti's point, when you ask a question, some folks, now I don't need anybody listening to think that we're tainting everybody with the same brush. We're not. But it depends on how, on your education, and I don't mean book smarts. I mean how educated you are in how municipal politics works. Have you read your package? Like, have you actually sat down and read what you're going to vote on or what you're going to discuss? If you haven't, then what are you doing at the table?
For me, I think, and like I said, my council, I feel I have a really good connection with my council members. I do. And I feel like I've almost earned my they really respect what I have to say. And I think maybe because I took my time, it was gradual. I didn't come in like a raging bull, because that's not who I am, ever. It doesn't matter what I am. What I do, I'm not that. And I respect them, they respect me, but they also respect the fact that, as Patti said, I look at everything when I'm making a decision. They know that I'm a thinker, I'm a processor, and I don't always have the same perspective as they have. I don't think I intimidate them, but I think I make them think.
I think a lot of people feel that, and again, it goes to what I was saying, your level of education, not book smarts, but the system and everything. And some people are afraid to ask questions. So when you have the answers and they don't because they haven't dug into it or asked the questions, it seems intimidating to them, but the response is to be defensive. And then sometimes it's to be offensive and to attack. And I'm going to say this clearly, this is not my council. I just do a lot of work throughout the whole province, and I see this, and I hear it. I get phone calls every day from other mayors, and that's what I see. So when you don't know, you can ask the question, or you can be defensive or offensive. It just doesn't work.
No one person at the table can be an expert on everything.
No, but some think they are.
Some people might feel that they are. In my day job, I deal with material that's quite technical. So when I'm dealing with, say, legal counsel, marketing folks, they're not technical people. But I need to get the technical information into language or metaphors or combinations that they will understand, and then they can connect the dots and realize, hey, all right, that's how that works. Now let's kind of move that along. And that's how, my day revolves around knowing my audience. How do you feel knowing your community has given you the leg up going into your roles?
I've lived in my community my whole life. That's where I was born. That's where I grew up. That's where I had my children. That's where I'm living now. I feel like I have a good sense of the people in my community. And not only did I live in my village, I lived in another village in my district. I feel like I do know kind of I know who the people are. I know what the issues are. And people feel comfortable asking me questions. And a lot of the work that we do as counselors, you don't see, right? It's not, we can't put it out there. And that's the most rewarding part of it. And I know that knowing the people in my community, they know that I'm approachable. And whether it's through social media or whether it's a phone call or whether it's in the grocery store, they're not afraid to ask if they need help with something or a question about something. And I feel like being in our community, like knowing our communities is part of this job. We need to know, we have to have our feelers out and know how things are going.
What type of engagement do you get and have you gotten from other women? Perhaps looking back when you first started to campaign, was it different than men? How did they engage you, and what were their concerns as far as you being a woman candidate or woman politician?
Sheer excitement. That's what I experienced. I'm in my third term, and it was sheer excitement. What can we do? Now I had a group of men at the table before I even knew I was running. They had gotten together and said, we would love you to run and we will be on your team. But, when we went out to do the legwork, it was, cars full of women. And the excitement was just, it was so fun, knocking on doors and talking to people. And, even when folks would say, oh, I'm not voting for you, I'm voting for somebody else. And that's what's beautiful about democracy. The respect for me running as a woman was there right from the get-go. It was beautiful.
It was for me as well, but I found it was a little more of a secret respect. Yeah. They would secretly tell me they were happy to see a woman run. I was honestly surprised. So the first time I ran was in 2008. after my father had passed away. He passed away in July, and the election was in October. And so that was the first time his seat had been vacant for almost 20 years. So I ran against 6 men. There were 7 of us on the ballot. And I was surprised at how many people asked me. First of all, they would say, "Do you have a day job?" Yes, I'm a teacher. How do you think you could do this job and be a teacher? And I, as politely as I could, said, every other candidate also has a day job. That's how I put it. But I was really surprised that in 2008, I was still having that question. But those women who were encouraging me were doing it a little more secretly. Now, after my first term, it was different. Mm-hmm. It was much more out there, and other women who were thinking of running were contacting me. How did you do this? How can you help? What do I need to know? And I was so excited to see that. And I always said, call me anytime, and I'll do whatever I can do to help any woman run. Yeah, it's changed.
It has changed. I agree completely. I mean, my first time out, I had moved back from Toronto. I did not grow up in Port Maitland. I grew up in the town of Yarmouth. And so I had to work really hard to meet the community and understand the needs of the community. And my door is always open, and my phone's always available. And one of the things I try to impart is, if you feel you need something, you need my help, then make sure you call me, because sometimes I don't know. If you don't tell me, I don't know. So be sure and provide that information to me. So the first time around, I actually have Pam to thank for introducing me to so many people through NSFM. I met so many wonderful men and women, which really set the stage for me running the second time, because I had so much support, particularly with the women, and not that the men did not. I met wonderful men, but you share things with women that you may not share. And they were so supportive anytime now, especially. If I have a question for anybody, I have this huge group of people, both men and women, that I can call. And it really has made a difference in confidence and knowing that you're doing the right thing.
Do you think that better female representation, no matter what level of government it's at, ensures that women's voices are heard and that their issues are recognized?
I think yes, definitely. I mean, we want but a lot of men see the women's issues as well. What I think is, because we lead differently, and it's just the way women do things versus the way men do things, and neither one is wrong. It's just different. And if you don't have both of those at the table, men may value different things from what women value. So if you put it all on the table, if you don't have that woman's voice, you're in a little bit of trouble. So you're lopsided. So we just need to be at the table.
Absolutely. We have different ways of looking at things. We have different perspectives. We're similar in a lot of ways, but we're different in many other ways. So it's really important that you have a combination of both men and women at the table. And we know that there have been very few women. Like, I know both the municipality, the District of Yarmouth, there were 2 at one time, and then Heather McDonald, who was highly respected, and then me, and that's it. So there's only been 4 women in the municipality of the District of Yarmouth. And now we have Sherry, which joined, Sherry Albright, which is absolutely fantastic. It just reinforces different views.
And just to add to that, I think it's all part of the diversity puzzle. It's not just about women and men. We need, different groups represented as well, because we all have different perspectives on how we deal with different things. And yes, I think it's important to have women's voices there. And I know the last time we went to the NSFM, when we walked into that conference, one of the first things I noticed is there are more women now. My first NSFM, I did look around the room and thought, there still aren't very many, but we're seeing growth all the time. We're seeing more and more women coming in. So it's not just a women-man thing. It's about about everybody's points of views. We're representing everyone.
And I want to point this out. I think it's really important that you have 3 women at this table, someone with a Lebanese background, an Acadian background, and a Jewish person. And what great diversity that is just sitting right here. And I think, I'm not 100% certain, but I think I'm the first Jewish woman in Southwest Nova to be on a council.
I think too that this is not a game. So, to what Nicole said a little bit earlier about, folks asking her, do you have a day job and things like that. I think just historically, the men could go out and do what they wanted to do. The women were home, making little sandwiches for gatherings and, making tea and vacuuming, those types. I mean, this is history, right? This is how it was. So when the women step up, it's not to, and my goodness, I have to keep qualifying this. This is not all men. But when women step up, we step up with a purpose. I need to get the job done. I need to serve. I just let's get this show on the road, as opposed to sitting around the parochial table where, we're just going to bounce things back and forth and talk and, measure whose muscles are bigger. Like there's no time for that. It's 2023. The issues are bigger than ever. And we just need to get the job done. So we are still seeing folks elect people. I don't know, maybe your grandfather sold eggs to the neighbor. That's why they vote for you. That's not how you vote. Well, you vote the way you want. I guess that'll get me in trouble, but whatever. I've been in trouble before. But, the public really needs to think, how am I voting? And you know what? You don't have to like me. You just have to know that I can get the job done. I'm very aware of the fact that some people don't love me. I don't get Christmas presents from all 7,000 people in town. But, that's okay. I just think that we need, as voters, and that's me as well, as voters, we need to think about who we're voting for. And just because the guy's lived in your neighborhood forever, it doesn't mean he's best to be sitting at that table. We just need to change the way we think and put some fresh faces in there, some fresh voices, and watch some council meetings online. That'll test you.
Right. We really need more young people involved as well. Absolutely. I mean, the future is based, we have to think about our future and what we're basing some of these big decisions on the kids and children and youth that are coming forward, and what do they want? It's just not, it's been too much of and I'm going to be blunt, a retired old man job for so many years, and that has to change because, again, it's about perception and what are we looking forward to and what's our future going to bring and what does our future need? And again, I find that women are faster decision makers, and there's a word I like to say in here, but get things done.
That was very diplomatic.
That's not usually what you say. I just want to add one little piece to that. Sorry, I know we're going a long time, but when we had done when you had the forum, when we were all candidates, my oldest daughter watched it. Of my 3, she's probably the most interested. And just as you said, we need to pull those people in. We need more diversity. It's not just women, it's youth. It's because after it was done, she spoke to me and said, it was hard for me to connect with anybody there. It was hard for me to connect. She said, because number one, they were predominantly male, over 60. She was 23 at the time. And she said, and there were some questions that both of you were there and had asked about gay pride and how we would deal with that. And her reaction to some of the answers were, I didn't believe them. I didn't believe them. Right? So we need to be authentic. We need to be, honest and we need to make sure that we're pulling in as many voices as we can.
Give me a high five for that. You know what's funny about, she's absolutely right. We have to be authentic and we have to be honest. And everybody says, I can't find an honest politician. Then you get three of them sitting right here and you don't believe what they're saying. Like that's the part that gets me. I don't believe you.
Right, and part of it is that in the past, it was old, and this position was like a VIP person. It was a token position, and that's not the case anymore. This is a job. We are dealing with millions and millions of dollars, so we have to know where the best places are to put that money and who is going to benefit from what we do. So our decisions are really, really important.
The status quo doesn't get you where you need to be anymore.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, and I mean, the status quo will put you on glide for a little while, but after a while, it's got to come to a head.
It does, and not only does it not get you where you want to go, after a while, it starts to take you backwards. And that's what I got during my first council from a couple of them. Well, that's the way we've always done it. And I said, well, thank goodness I know that. That's going to change. Because, and then you have to be bold about it. Like, what are we doing? You know, you do the same thing, you get the same response. So.
Yeah, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah, if it works, don't change it.
Yeah, I use that a lot too. So, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
That's right. But sometimes.
But it's broke.
That it's broken, and I say, I'm trying to be diplomatic like Patti, it takes a set of courage to
Yes.
get the job done, like to have the guts to get out there and just say, like, this doesn't work.
I think the word you were looking for is gonads.
Thank you, Quinn. You're even more diplomatic. I mean, we said we'd be brutally honest.
No,
and
that's
it's
good.
the
We're
only
being
way to do
honest.
for people to understand. But you can't keep. I mean, I had someone follow me around so upset because I said, shut down Main Street and put the car show on Main Street. We can't do that because, you know, those businesses are going to lose 2 days' business. It was the busiest day they ever had. Like, who can't see that?
It's hard to come out of your comfort zone, though.
It
is, right? People get
Yeah.
stuck in a comfort zone
Yeah.
and they don't. But we have to think outside the box because we've been doing things. We've been on glide, and we need to do better. And stepping out of that comfort zone is what is going to help us make progress. And we need to make new decisions. I know our council talks a lot about, well, you know, we're not a big municipality, but generating money. We don't want to. Who wants to raise taxes? We don't want to raise taxes. However, we all know things are costing a lot of money, so we have to think about other ways of generating money. And sometimes decisions come in front of you, and I don't know. I don't know. And it's just like, nope. We have to take a chance, and the chances we take, some will work and some will not work.
And I'm okay when somebody says no to a tough decision because, you know what, I just can't see it. But again, bluntly put, we have people who say, I'm saying no to that because I want people to vote for me. And if I say something else, they'll be upset with me, and I don't want people to be upset with me. Well, you know what? In my world, people are upset with me every single day. But the last decade, the town is not what it was. It's not. It's growing. Our population has gone up 5% the first time since 1991. Something's happening, and it's not just COVID. It's not just COVID. It's creating community and supplying amenities and
Mm-hmm.
inviting diversity and businesses and all those pieces. But you have to set the table. And every time the crazy mayor that paints everything, well, it worked, right? It worked. And so you just have to have the guts. And then, you either just stand proud or you duck, depending on the day. Sometimes I duck.
And one of the things I want to say too is that old politics were game players, people, and I think the face with women now being involved, the face of politics has changed, and we're not game players like that. We just want to be honest, to have integrity, and get things done, and not play games. Because it doesn't get us anywhere.
One of the best pieces of advice that Mayor Mood gave me, and you probably don't even remember saying it, but it was in my first term. She said, if there's one thing I can tell you, it's don't make decisions to get elected. Make decisions based on what's best for your people. And that stuck with me. It really did. And I know there are people who make decisions based on the chatter.
Exactly.
Right? And we have to sometimes look beyond that.
Make the right decision for the right reasons.
Right.
Do you think holding the municipal election in the middle of COVID pushed some folks into going down a different road? Maybe had change on their mind? Because now we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're trying to put a council together. We're going to have to make some tough decisions. Stuff's not working the way it was before. We really have to pivot and do a whole bunch of different things. How do you think that impacted the results of the elections? And the candidates, because that's the other side of it too, right? Because when you think about, how do we attract quality candidates for the job, right? Anybody can run, don't get me wrong. You get your forms, you get your signatures, you put your name in the hat and pray people vote for you. But and we saw some of that in some of the different candidate lists as well. But certainly you want to attract quality individuals to the councils in order to get stuff done. You need that experience. Did COVID kind of push us in the right direction, or did it make it go totally sideways? What's your opinion?
I don't think it really did have a huge impact. I look at what happened, and some of us went out and knocked on doors, and some of us did not for safety reasons. And but I don't really think it had a huge impact. What about you, ladies?
I don't either, actually. Surprisingly, though, Quinn, because you would think it would, but I don't think it did.
I know most of my campaigning was done online, and mostly because I was in the schools as a teacher, and I didn't feel safe going door to door because I was being exposed every single day, and I'm in multiple schools throughout our school board, so I just didn't feel safe. But I connected to almost everybody through social media, and a lot of them were happy for me to, and I said, if you want me to visit, I will. No, we're good. I prefer this, because not everybody wants you, in their homes either. So I think in terms of candidates, I felt a little bit bad for those who may have been new, putting their names out there because they couldn't necessarily connect with everybody, whereas I feel like we probably already had a bit of an advantage, to be honest, because we had our connections already made, so it was easier to reach out. But I didn't hear of anybody who said to me, I would have run, but because of COVID, I didn't. I didn't hear that at all.
No, neither did I.
So back to the part of the question about quality candidates. Is there a magic solution to that, to try to get quality individuals to run?
First of all, one of the most important things to me is that person has to have communication skills, strong communication skills, and be a leader. And I think the definition of leader is really important. Like, leaders don't just stand up and pat themselves on the back. Leaders bring people together to try and make best decisions for everyone. And so that, I think people have to look at, is that person capable of doing that to start with?
Nobody gets into municipal politics for the money.
Oh, no. No.
I mean, let's be realistic. It's just like nobody gets into broadcasting for the money either, right?
I think the system too, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm a leadership expert. It's what I do, and it's what I did before, like teaching leadership all over North America. And one of my favorite quotes by a leadership expert is, everything rises and falls on leadership. We know that. We're watching our leaders. The tone is set by the leaders. The respect for the group around you is set by the leaders. So I'll say this, in the town, because we're elected differently, right? So in the town, for example, I'm elected at large. So the people have said, we want Pam to lead in town, right? So that's why I get a lot of, people know who I am, and when something good or bad happens, it falls on me, and that's okay. By virtue of the position, that's what I signed up for. But when that's not the case, like where do you go, right? Because when people say, well, I didn't vote for that person to be the leader, and there's, it can be good or bad. It's a hard one. I'm a fan of the mayor system.
Being
a
team player though is top priority.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know what the remedy is because it's public service, right? There's no prerequisites. There's no job description. There's no, but there's nothing. You don't put your qualifications down. It can be a popularity contest. It can be.
Yeah.
But what I find, and I've said to my CAO, you must be scared every 4 years of what you're going to get because you don't know who's going to sit at that table, right? Yeah. And in my role, whenever there's been a new councillor coming on our council, I've always gone to them and said, if you need anything, if you have any questions, there are no dumb questions. Feel free to ask, because I remember my term, just the acronyms alone. Just knowing they would be saying NSFM and blah, blah, blah. And I had no idea what they were talking about. I had no idea. And I said, just feel free to ask. And if you don't know, and if I don't know, our CAO and our deputy, their wealth of knowledge. So we don't always, there is no remedy for that. But I think once we're on council, part of our role is to kind of transition and help as much as we can, the newbies coming on.
Would it be different, though, in the two municipalities if the councillors were elected at large as opposed to using the district system?
Yes.
Because Nicole, you were up against one other candidate in the last election.
Yes.
So, you live in my district, so I guess I can talk to it. So you got a 50-50, and some people got, acclimated in. Not necessarily the best candidates per se, but nobody else seemed to want to, throw their hat in the ring. Whereas in town, of course, it's an at-large system. If you got 25 people, that's a lot of vote splitting, and it doesn't take a lot to kind of move the bar. So, Mayor, maybe you can just talk to it for a second, because, you're used to the at-large system, so do you feel that maybe that would be better served for everybody?
I think it would better serve the entire country. And I am not saying that because of anything local. That's not the case. I've heard before people would say, well, my community won't be represented. Well, are you saying the south end of Yarmouth isn't represented, or the north end, or center town, or out by the... you're represented. The difference is you have 7 people on council that you can call on. And when you're elected in districts, you each have your, and your people, but are you going to sit at the table? Oh, we can have a good discussion on this one. Are you going to sit at the table and honestly make the best decision for the whole region, or are you going to be focused just on your area and fight against everything else? So well, you got a sidewalk, I want a sidewalk. And I'm like, really? You have to be able to separate those things. And yeah.
To add to that, I think the people, though, because our districts are bigger and they're further away from each other, that they want someone, people in our communities have spoken to say, we want someone from our area that knows our area. And so they understand what's going on. That being said, in terms of what it comes down to when you are 7 people at the table and you have to choose a warden and there are brand new people, you don't know each other. You have no clue who that person is that just won the election in a specific district, and they've said, oh, yes, I want to be the warden, and they'll tell everybody, yes, I want to be the warden. But how do you know if that warden can lead? You don't. And that's, to me, is a downfall with the warden system, is you don't know when you pick someone. Like, I remember my first time in, I didn't know those people I was sitting at the table with. Oh, pick me because I've been here the longest. Well, that doesn't mean you're the best leader, right?
Yeah, there are definitely some flaws to the system for sure. Like I think of our municipality geographically, it's huge. So for that reason, like I understand why we're still district, and for the same reason. But there are but I also know that when we sit at the table and make decisions, there are still some of us who are looking out for our pocket, and sometimes that's hard. That's a hard mentality to change because it is a whole municipality, right? And we have to kind of look out for everybody.
I had the pleasure for almost 4 decades covering the 3 municipal councils in Yarmouth County. And over those years, there are always issues that the councils have to work on together, regional issues. And I can recall several very contentious issues and some pretty interesting meetings, hot under the collar. The issues always got resolved, but it took some time. So, do you find when those things happen, when everybody pulls back, they want to protect their own municipal interests, of course, but when everybody pulls back, and that it is perhaps the women who work better at resolution?
Being a woman on council, and I do have another female councilor as well, which is great. It is great. We speak a lot. We connect very well. But I've grown outside of that bubble too. Like how often do I text the 2 of you? Mm-hmm. Very often, as well as Sherry. And I feel like we have a different perspective on things, and we often can, if there's something, we don't always agree on issues, but we can work through things in a respectful way. And I value everybody's opinion, but sometimes I'll text and I'll say, am I wrong here? Am I seeing this? Am I seeing this wrong? And I know I can freely do that with my women counterparts. And we do that a lot.
Because
we do.
It's always, and rightfully so, about the issue, not the person. Mm-hmm. Everybody can't get that right. They can't. And you sit at some council tables and, heaven forbid you vote no to the, whatever the guy across the table is saying yes to, all of a sudden you don't like him. You're public enemy number 1. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, you know what? We got to move past grade 6. Like, that just doesn't work. We can't sort it out on the playground. I can't beat you up after school if I don't agree with you. So, it's just, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it's not junior high anymore.
No, it's not.
No, but you do feel it.
Oh gosh, yes.
You do feel it when you've made a decision and just say, we all agreed. Well, I changed my mind. Like, you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to go and get information from other people. You're allowed to ask questions. Some people do and some people don't. But I think it's resented when you come back with information that other people didn't know, and you happen to be right. I know it is sometimes on mine, but yes, I can't imagine what I would do without these ladies, because we have thankfully shared so many things and helped each other in so many ways. And it goes even beyond our own councils. Like yes. I said, it's outside too. And again, we've all said it, it's that different perspective. And that's why you need diversity on council.
Final thoughts.
Well, what's the question?
Would we encourage, this is about women in politics, would we encourage more women to run? Absolutely. Please, we need you, we want you, we'll help you, we'll encourage you. Is it meaning we're against the guys running, men running? No, not at all, not at all. But we do value having different perspectives. And so I know I've used that word a lot, but it happens all the time. And that's good because it makes you think.
And I think that if we want to continue to see more women in politics, we have to encourage as many women as we can to sign up and be on council or be involved in provincial politics or federal politics. Because these little girls are looking at us. They are, whether we believe it or not, and they're watching what we're doing, just as we watched what our parents did. And they are now, I feel like more girls are able to see themselves in politics because there is an increase of women in politics. So we have to keep encouraging each other, and I feel like we do that well. We do that well.
We really
We certainly do.
And I think we have to continue to do that, and we have to continue for people to see that we can be successful in this role.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm going to go a step further and talk about something that we haven't touched on really, but it's social media. And when we talk about getting women, when I say women, I mean young girls, like our youth, like Patti was saying and Nicole agrees, we need to get our youth involved. And what I get, and I get it often, is, man, I'd put my name on the ballot, but I'm not going through what you go through on social media. And, and I know this is not true of everybody, but my answer to that, and then it's always, you're so graceful when you answer. And I think, I believe this, that the harder people attack me, personally, the harder they attack me, the more they must be hurting. And I've said that often. And, they're frustrated because they can't get an answer, or, everything from housing, which isn't ours. Housing's not ours. Healthcare is not ours. But, when they see that, it scares them. It scares them, and they say, I just don't want to go through that. So, if the folks out there want great representation, don't attack what you have. Don't attack what you have. It doesn't... As long as I wake up in the morning and I'm doing what I believe is right and true and will help the community, what people think of me is none of my business. It really isn't. And I try to think of that. And if I can't get in that mindset, I text one of these girls and say, talk me off the cliff. So, because you have to be able to laugh. You have to be able to laugh. And I wouldn't want to do anything else. I absolutely love this. And I love it, I think, because I genuinely love people. I don't care how you treat me. I care about you, and I care about what is best for you. And sometimes that's like the parents, right? You're not getting the candy. You're getting the broccoli first. So it's like, that's how I feel sometimes. It's like, I want to give you everything you want, but we have to make sure we pay for what we need first. And grow the town. So that's where I am. I just hope that more women step up and we'll be good to go.
I'm Gary Nickerson.
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
And this has been Outside My Window.